Here. Let's see. Okay. So can everyone see my screen? Awesome. All right. So, whoa. Sorry, I don't know what's going on, but all right. So hello everyone once again. What does it say? Sorry, it's because. Awesome. Okay. So sorry about that. I'm just trying to get used to presenting online through Zoom. But once again, my name is Giovanni Severino, and Tanya Medina is here as well. We will both be presenting to you today. You in politics. Why is it important to know our broken government system? The presentation is brought to you by hopefully future Washington State Representatives Tanya Medina and Giovanni Severino. So meet your future reps.
So hi everyone. My name is Tanya Medina. Once again, I am the Youth Leadership and Advocacy Organizer for the Latino Community Fund. And we do put Meet Your Future Representatives here. So I am from Kent, Washington. I'm not sure if you all know where that is at, but it's south of Seattle and more north of Tacoma. So we're like really in the middle in between. I did also graduate from Central Washington University. I majored in political science with a minor in law and justice. So if you are ever interested about learning about poli-sci program in CWU, I would love to have that conversation with you. And a fun fact about me, I protested in Washington, D.C. for the Clean Dream Act, so a pathway to citizenship for undocumented youth. So right here, you can see a bunch of activists, student leaders, youth leaders, and honestly, it was like one of the best moments of my life just being here. So this is my contact information if you ever want to follow up with me. But Gio, take it away for your slide.
Yeah, and so once again, Giovanni Severino here. As mentioned in the bio, I am from Los Angeles, California. And the reason why I like to bring that up is just so folks can understand a little bit of my background of where I come from. But my hometown now is Yakima, Washington. It's very different from LA, but it's still home and it's a cool spot. I'm the lead policy organizer for the Latino Community Fund. I attended the Central Washington University, where I graduated in 2018 with a political science degree. And fun fact, it was mentioned in the bio, but my senior year, I had the privilege and the opportunity to serve as the ASCWU student body president, which gave me a lot of insight as to the importance of advocating, whether it's at school, in your community, at home. Just advocating is really important. And my contact information is located below. If you ever want to contact me, feel free to take my email down there. All right, so I am going to, we have a Kahoot set up ready for you all. I just have to click this link. All right, can everyone see the screen that's being shared?
Yeah, Gio, if you so if you click on classic, perfect. So if everybody if you can go on to kahoot.com, if you can lower the volume, Gio. Gio, yes, thank you. So if you all can go onto kahoot.it on your phones and then type in the game pin 803-160. That would be awesome.
Sorry about the music, y'all. I didn't know how to mute it. Cool.
So we'll wait for folks to connect.
And just to clarify, you can also join from your computer, right?
Yep. And then we'll give it a minute or two.
Really like that emoji one. I'm curious to see who that is. Cool. Is that everyone? Shall we begin?
I think we should give it like one more minute because I know there's 29 participants and only 18 players have connected. So we can wait. Just give like another minute.
Yep. Liz, never played Kahoot. It's pretty fun. You will try it out right now.
All right, so let's begin here. So Gio, if you want to go on with the game. So yeah, so this is Washington State government to test your knowledge. So what state do you live in? So we'll give it some time.
Everyone's from Washington.
That's awesome.
All right.
Music.
Oh, Paco's in the lead. Let's go. Question number 2. How many amendments are in the Bill of Rights? Twenty answers. 2, 1. There we go. So there are 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights. Okay. Alice up in the lead. Following question is, who is the governor of Washington State? Yay. Okay.
Someone said Harry Styles.
All right. Alice still in the lead. America's coming right behind you. Who are our Washington State U.S. Senators? Three, two, one. And there you go. Our 2 U.S. Senators for Washington State are, in fact, Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray. Oh, dang. This is exciting. General Election Day. When is it? There we go. That's what we're missing. Some music in the background. Yes, November 3rd is our general election. So make sure you mark that on your calendars, put an alarm on that day. November 3rd is election day. And America stays on top. How many legislative districts does Washington State have? Yes, the right answer is 49. We have 49 legislative districts in Washington State. What type of voting party method does Washington State have? We are an open election state. So in other words, you don't have to register to any party, just vote. Okay, America's on it, America's on it. And then the last one, does the United States have a constitution? Three, two, one. Yes, and the answer is true. We do have a constitution. Alianza in place. Jennifer in second. In America, first place. Congrats, y'all. So this is just a little, little Kahoot, little poll, just to give us some insight as to how much knowledge you all have in regards to the government. So now, y'all can still see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why should I care about politics? So this is probably a question many of you may have. Many times, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, focus on politics, focus on politics, focus on politics." Like, "Oh, it's really important." Blah blah blah. Well, why? Politics is basically who gets what, when, and how. So politics is the game of creating rules for our society on essential aspects of life. It affects where you live, what you eat, what games you play, where you can go, how you can travel, how much you earn, your community, etc. So politics is basically what affects us in all aspects of our lives. So once again, politics is basically who gets what, when, and how. I want you all to remember that. Okay, so politics is who gets what, when, and how. Tanya?
Yeah. So why do we have a government? So we have a constitution brought to you by the OG colonizers. So the quote unquote founding fathers. If you can move on to the slide. So the Constitution, I'm pretty sure everybody has seen the picture on the right-hand side, we the people of the United States. Everybody refers back to this if we're talking about government. But a constitution is a nation's basic law. It creates political institutions, assigns or divides powers in government, and often provides certain guarantees to citizens. So I'm pretty sure you all already heard this, but I'll go over it again. But we are the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, and so on. So the Constitution was actually written after the Declaration of Independence. Um, the Declaration of Independence was actually um, moved forward because they just wanted to say that they needed a government that was more structured than what they already had in the colonies. So with that, moving forward, James Adam and Thomas Jefferson actually got together during the convention of New York and Virginia. And that's how the Declaration of Independence became to be, or sorry, not the Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution. It wasn't just both of them, but it was other representatives of the time, which the majority of them were just white males. But things to consider in the Constitution is that in the Constitution also states that census must be done every 10 years. So as you all know, we are in 2020. The Constitution does say that we do need to make sure that we count everyone. So when you all have the time, make sure you're completing your census at 2020census.gov. It only takes 10 minutes, and it has a 10-year impact on our communities. It also on the Constitution states the Senate and Representatives, so that's the House of Representatives, how long a president can be, how we vote, how basically it shows the whole rules of how the United States is structured. And keep that in mind because it's 2020 and this was made back in the 1600s. So let that sink in, process that, and we'll go more a little bit towards that conversation later. And another thing I do want to mention is that the Supreme Courts, sorry, Gio, they refer a lot back to the Constitution. So and that's why a lot of our summaries that we hear from the Supreme Court is it's not constitutional or it's constitutional. It's because they're able to interpret the way that they're reading the Constitution regarding if it's constitutional or not. But we'll go more into that later in the presentation. And you can skip, Gio. Go
So
ahead.
in addition to the Constitution, because as Tanya said, this is the structure of this country, the United States. One thing that some individuals realized is that there was more structure for the country, but not many protections for the individuals in the country. And that's where the Bill of Rights comes in. So they are the Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, were put in place to set protections for the individuals or for the people that inhabit within the United States from the big government, the governments that were put in place, because as if you may know, like the country started because there was a rebellion against a kingdom that didn't listen to them. So the Bill of Rights is supposed to set those protections that they didn't have before. And the first one, it's really important. We didn't write the whole thing on there, but it's the right to free speech, the freedom to assemble peacefully, the freedom of press. That is all included within the First Amendment, the first right. So you have the freedom of speech, you have the freedom or the right to bear arms if you wish. The Third Amendment protects you from the homeowners from having the military stay in their home. So essentially, just they, the government can't send troops to your home and just like that. Like that's not right. You're protected from that. And the many more, the rest of the Bill of Rights are important as well. So, the right of people to be secure in their persons, to be safe in their homes and be protected against the unreasonable searches and seizures. No one can search you just like that. They need to have a reasonable right to search you and to seize your property. The right to both criminal and civil legal proceedings. So essentially the right to have a court date and a fair trial. They can't just tell you, oh, you're guilty of this without any proof. There has to be a fair trial. And it has to be speedy as well. So then that's the Sixth Amendment, a speedy and public trial. The speedy is being put into question right now because there are many cases where that's not the case right now, but we're fighting for that right to be used. And then, the right to a jury trial. Also, there's no excessive bail that should be required or no cruel punishments. You're protected from that. And then in the Bill of Rights, it also says that, there are certain rights that shall not be construed or denied by others or by other people. And then also that the government, the federal government, does not have full authority over the states. So the states can govern themselves as well. And that's essentially the Bill of Rights. So these are things that protect us from the big, scary federal government.
So let's break it down. So in the government, there are three different branches, which is the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. So Gio, if you can skip, or let's see here. So if you can go back for me. Yeah, there you go. So go on that slide. Thank you. So on the legislative branch, it's more so about Congress. So Congress is the legislative arm of the government, and its job is to make laws. So everything that there is to do with like federal laws, it's because our Congress has passed those laws. So Congress is made up of two houses. We have the Senate, what they usually call as the upper house, and the House of Representatives, which is the lower house. Each state has two senators in the Senate. So if you look at the pictures, Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray are the first one on the top. Yep, thank you, Gio. And then later on, we do have our representatives who are part of our district as well. So we have Pramila Jayapal, we have Kim Schreier, Denny Heck, Dan Newhouse. I keep forgetting his name, but we have Kathy Morris and Adam. I want to say Adam. Yeah. So those are just some of the representatives, but we do have some more. But yeah, so the number of representatives a state has is determined by its population. So when we mean that you should complete the census, I truly do mean it, because that actually counts as how many representatives we have for the state of Washington. So for an example, if they see that the state of Washington has more people than it did 10 years ago, the probability of us winning a seat would be pretty high, because everybody did the census and they can see that we need better representation rather than like the low number of representations. But if you take a look at New York, like the state of New York, if they don't complete the census, that can impact their representation real badly. And something that's going to be affected is, for an example, Alexandria Ocasio's district, it can disappear because people aren't completing the census. And then when that disappears, her seat also disappears with it. So we can potentially also lose a representative. So encourage others to fill out the census, because it does affect on it. So just a quick comparison from the House versus the Senate. So once again, the House is the lower chamber of the government. So it has 435 members serving 2-year terms, and this is for the whole United States. The speaker's referral bills to the committee is hard to challenge. So in this case, if we're taking a look at who's in our current government, that would be Nancy Pelosi. So she would be the one who is referring the bills and the committee to challenge. Also, the Rules Committees are powerful. In the House, they're all separated in committees. So every single representative in the House has a better insight of what bills they're going to bring up to the floor of the House. And also, committees almost always consider legislation first, and then the debate usually is limited to 1 hour, and then the non-germane amendments may not be introduced from floor. And Gio, if you're able, if you can exit out of the group chat, because I can see it on the screen. Yeah, thank you. And then on the Senate, we have 100 members, because remember, 50 times 2 is 100. And then we do have a referral decisions too easy to challenge. Rules Committee is weak, so few limits on debate or amendments. And then the committee is considered easily bypassed, and unlimited debate unless shortened by anonymous consent or by invoking culture. So this one's really important. I'm not sure if you all know this, but there was a representative called Ted Cruz from the state of Texas, where he was actually holding the floor for debate for about 5 hours reading the book Dr. Seuss. So representatives can do that, and it's time that we hold them accountable, right? So it's very important that we hold our representatives to make sure that they're actually discussing bills that are in our favor rather than reading a book. And also the non-germane amendments may be introduced. So they call these as riders. So not so long ago, back in 2018, there was a new proposal to the budget, or not, 2018 to the 2019 government budget year. So with that, what a lot of representatives do in the Senate is that they try to ride bills with the main budget proposal. So one of the things that I actually happen to know is for the Clean Dream Act. So it was a pathway to citizenship for the Dreamers. So it was in favor of the Democratic Party in the Senate. So all the senators who were in Congress and who were Democratic, they were trying to attach the Clean Dream Act with the budget proposal. But unfortunately, it didn't pass through. But as for that being attached, the House of Representatives wouldn't be able to do that. Only the Senate people can attach bills to it. So when you hear like these representatives attaching things to the bill, it's because they're called writers. And the Senate leader is Mitch McConnell. And then I don't know if you all want to know this, but this is a cool fact. The House is primarily controlled of Democrats, and the Senate is primarily controlled by the Republicans. And if you want to go back a slide. Yep, so this video we're going to be showing you how a bill is passed through the House of Representatives and then through the Congress as well. So, or sorry, the Senate. So the House and the Senate. Yep. So if you can play the video.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
You should be able to hit play. Yeah, there you go. And if you can put your volume up just a little bit.
It is not letting me play.
Let's see here.
As your body grows big, it's ready to learn. Now just go. I'm just a bill.
You sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. But I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long...
Okay, so we are hearing that. Okay, I'm gonna try to share on my screen. Is that okay, Gio? Let's see here.
That's fine. I'm trying to, there we go.
And then,
I'm sorry about all these technical difficulties.
It's good. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me know if you all can hear it.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. and I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law.
Let me try doing it.
All right, so maybe I can just explain it to the best of my ability. Once again, sorry everyone. I hate technology nowadays. Let's see here.
I'm just a bill.
Okay. So Gio, if you can share your screen again. And then thank you everyone for being patient with us. Technology just sometimes really does suck. But thank you for bearing with us. To the video. But what the video was trying to say is that the House of Representatives have bills almost every day. So how a bill works is that there is a group of people that come together and they say, we need change. So for an example, they can say, we believe that there should be no chocolate. So a lot of people will say, well, I like chocolate on my ice cream, or I like chocolate on my strawberries. Or some people will say, I don't like chocolate because it gives me an allergic reaction. So what can happen is that people will sign a petition, and then that petition can also go to one of the one of the representatives. And from there, the representative will present it in committee saying, well, this is what my constituents want. And then constituents are people who are part of the county or wherever they're being represented from. So they're just potentially the people who they're representing. And then from there, the committee will decide if it will go on. And if it does go on, it will go over to the House of Representatives. So it will come from committee to the House of Representatives. Then the House of Representatives will vote on it. And then the bill will go over to the Senate. And that's when the Senate will be like, well, we feel like chocolate does deserve to be on strawberries. So they'll say the conditions of the bill and so more the recommendations. And then with that, the Senate will vote, and then it'll potentially end up at the president's desk for the president to vote. So that's how the bill is created. And then Gio, if you want to add on to anything.
Yeah, so in other words, it's a long process, but it's an important process to know because that's where the rules of our country, of our states come from, is creating a bill and passing it into a law. And then we'll move on to the second branch of the government, which is the executive branch, or the president, which is led by the president. So the executive powers shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. The president not only heads the executive branch of the federal government, but is also the head of state and commander-in-chief of armed forces. So in other words, the president runs the government. The president is also like the face of the country whenever dealing with international affairs, and is the commander-in-chief when it comes to our military. So we got a picture over here of the Jonas Brothers, you know, if y'all know who that is. So the Jonas Brothers out here in front of the White House, and then right here is John F. Kennedy, which is one of the very well-known former presidents that we've had in the history of the United States. And a little bit more about the executive branch is, so the president is responsible for basically enforcing the laws that have been already written by Congress. So those representatives and the senators, they pass a law through Congress, and now it's up to the president on enforcing that law, right? So they appoint heads of federal agencies. So like, federal agencies that will carry out this law. And then, well, the vice president is also part of the executive branch, and they should be ready to assume presidency if needed. And some of the agencies that make up the cabinet of the executive branch are departments of all these things. So the agriculture, commerce, defense, education, you know, you see the list right there in front of you. It's a bunch of aspects of our life that the executive branch has total power to run and to implement these laws. So that's why it's important to know who is creating the laws, so who our representatives and senators are, and then also who will be enforcing the laws, so who are going to be the heads of all these departments. And we've heard the term executive orders a lot frequently recently. And basically an executive order is just it's the president giving a directive to all the federal agencies as to how they will implement or enforce a certain law. And it essentially changes the operations of the federal government. So the president cannot pass a law, but the president can do an executive order and change the way they are enforcing a law. So just a little knowledge right there.
Yeah, so this is our judicial branch. So it is our Supreme Court. And as stated, our judicial branch of the government is a system of federal courts and judges that interpret the law. But yeah, so we only have 9 districts all around the United States for it as well. So there's like the smaller district courts that we have. I believe Washington's considered for the 13th, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, so the selection of the federal judges. So everybody that you see here on the picture were actually all nominated by a president. So only the US president can nominate the Supreme Court justices. And it's really important that we also do vote, go more so about who we elect, because remember that these Supreme Court justices are for term life, so their terms don't ever expire. So if we get annoyed from them, we can't kick them out. Only, I believe they can get impeached, but that's very, very, very rare. So, but yeah, so their workload is a lot. So if you want to go to the next slide, Jigo. And with that being said, the Supreme Court has done a lot of things to our civil rights movement and just our rights in general. So one of the biggest ones is Brown versus Board of Education, which then ended the racial integration of public schools. We also have the Miranda versus Arizona. So this one, so has anybody with a thumbs up, if you can, ever heard of the Miranda rights? So when, let's see, I'm not, yep, I see thumbs up. Awesome. So that's when we've probably seen it in movies or in real life, but that's when the cops have to state your rights. So it's you have the right to remain silent, or you have the right to talk to an attorney, or all that other stuff. So that's when the law enforcement came advised, and the Supreme Court ruled on that. And then of course we have the Roe versus Wade, which then talks about abortion, making it illegal before a fetus was viable, giving women more power when it comes to their bodies and having children. So these are just one of the few big cases in the United States.
And all these cases have shaped the way our society is today. That's why we all went to school with people of different cultures and different races, because of this action. That's why we know our rights when we get stopped by cops. And that's why women have more freedom with what to do with their own body. Like all these things, although it may be really boring at times, like we got to know this information because it literally affects us in our day-to-day life. So now we'll be moving on to the more local things. So at a state government level, so these are some pictures of some individuals that make up either our legislators at the state or are part of the executive branch of the state. And so State Government 101. So Washington State Capitol is Olympia, for those who may not know. Our governor is Jay Inslee. We have 49 legislative districts for the Senate, and there are 98 House representatives, and you get 2 representatives for each district. each district, which is why we have 98. Um, the Washington state is an open election system. So in other words, in other states, if you want to vote for a certain party, you have to be registered within that party. But here in Washington state, you can vote for whichever election, even if you're not registered in that party. So that gives people more access to participate in the elections. Referendums, so the legislature writes and refers legislation to the voters. And then we have initiatives, which this state allows individuals like all of us here in the Zoom meeting today to make a bill and get a lot of signatures, and then it'll be on the ballot, or not a bill, an initiative, and then it'll be on the ballot, and then the rest of Washington state voters can choose whether or not to approve that initiative or not. And yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, maybe one of the examples that you all heard of was Tim Amon's $25 tabs or $35 tabs. So that's one that he worked on for the longest, and he finally got it on the ballot, and they voted for it. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention. I just wanted to use that as an example because that was the most recent one.
Like that example, exactly. And overall, Washington state is a pretty progressive state. So most of the laws that we have in our state tend to lean more leftward.
So yeah, so okay. So voting matters, elections in Washington state and federally. So if you want to skip the next slide. So yeah, so registering to vote in Washington state. So you can register to vote in plenty of different ways. You can register to vote when you're at the DOL. So if you're ever getting like your state ID or your license renewed or a boat or whatever it might be, you can register right there. You can even register online at the courthouse, or you can just register right now if you like as we finish up this presentation. So Washington state registration actually is now open to 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds to pre-register. So if you're already 16 or 17 and you already want to be pre-registered, you can do that as well. The only requirements to do that is you do have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. And once again, Washington state is a mail-in ballot state, so you will get all your ballots to the current address that's associated with your state ID, or you can always send your ballot somewhere else. So for an example, if you're living at school for the time, but your ballot is back home, you can actually send that ballot to school and you can still vote for your hometown. And the link right here that we have is a voter registration link. I believe we can link it down here again on the chat. But yeah, so if you do ever have an information or if you ever need help registering to vote, let us know. If you ever do browse TikTok, I can promise you all that it takes quicker to register to vote than being stuck in TikTok for like 10 minutes. So if you want to skip that, Joe.
Yes, so then here's some more information. Election information is that we are a mail-in ballot state. So you receive your ballot 18 days prior to the day it's due, so the election day. There are drop boxes located all over Washington state. And fun fact, if you happen to find yourself, if you, let's say for whatever reason, the elections are almost coming to an end and you have to go visit a friend or a family member across the mountains, you can bring or you can take your ballot with you and you can mail it in from wherever, anywhere in Washington state. You can just mail it in and it'll go to the right place that you're voting. So it's pretty accessible and it's pretty beneficial for us who can vote. They made it really easy for all of us to be able to access this. And once again, mentioning it again, it's an open election. All parties do not need to register to what party they are voting for. They can vote for whatever party they would like. And as we asked you before, please mark it on your calendars. November 3rd is the general election day. That is the big day. So make sure you let your friends, your family members, everyone know to remember that day because that's election day. And down here, There are some more deadlines and important dates that the elections are suggesting us to remember. So they do have voter registration deadlines, which is always 8 days before the election day. So if you want to register to vote over paper or online, it must be 8 days before November 3rd. If you've missed that deadline, you can go register to vote. Yeah, you can go register to vote in person at your local election office. It's really easy, and like Tanya said, you'll probably spend more time on TikTok than filling out a registration form. I swear it only takes about 2 to 3 minutes. And yeah, now what do our representatives do? So our representatives are meant to represent you by introducing bills to create laws that will benefit your district. So as we've been talking about, an idea, it starts with an idea and it becomes a bill. And then these representatives either support the bill or fight against the bill, whatever best benefits the district. And the districts are designed based off of census data. So make sure your family and friends have filled out the census. Fun facts, $48,000 in resources go to each person or to the community each year for 10 years for each person that gets counted in your community. So if you have 10 people that don't get counted in your community, that's $48,000 each year your community will be losing in federal dollars that will support resources such as Medicare, Medicaid, financial aid, Section 8, WIC, like all these federal programs, the sidewalks, the schools, like everything is affected by this. And this also sets up a design as to who will be representing you in your district. And so these are the federal level congressional districts. So these are the districts that at the federal level that we have here in Washington State. We have 10 representatives, 2 senators, because each senator or each state gets 2 senators. But these are our districts. And if you can see, they're kind of drawn weirdly, you know. We'll get a little bit more to that right now. And this is at the state level because we have our own state government and our own legislative districts. These are our districts that make up Washington. And as you can tell, they're drawn very weirdly as well. And in fact, I wanted to zoom in earlier, but I couldn't. But if you can tell here in Yakima, where I'm presenting at, it's cut into 2 districts. Tacoma is caught between 2 districts. Seattle's cut into a bunch of them. So it's like they cut them up. And why do they do that? Or what is that called? That's called gerrymandering. So gerrymandering, what happens is, for example, let's say in this community, let's say right here, right? Let's say this area right here of Central Washington, Yakima area. Let's say there are 60% people who vote blue and 40% people that vote red. If you were to draw districts evenly and equally to make sure that you get everyone from these communities, it is very likely that you will create districts like so, where the blue gets the most wins because that is equally cut up, you know, it's cut up equally. But because of gerrymandering, what happens is there are people that at times do it very secretively after the census. There's a commission that is created to draw these districts, and they draw them up weird to make sure that they get enough political power in that district. So if you were to cut them up evenly, the red doesn't get any representation. But if you cut them up in very weird shapes and very like with the precision of a surgeon, you get a district like this, where the red voters get more power than the blue, even though there are more blue in the area than the red. And that's what's happened in many of these communities. And the reason why I'm speaking heavily on Yakima is because I do live here. Um, Yakima is majority people of color, but they've managed to split us up into districts. So then that the people of color vote, we vote in different districts. So like that, we don't have a majority, and like that, we don't get a bigger seat at the table. So things you need to look out for. Um, they they're working very hard for us not to get power.
Yeah, and something I do want to add as well is that this does like put us at a disproportionate for BIPOC communities, because if you look at if you can go back to the map of Washington, Geo, for a quick second. Yeah, so if you look at the way that it's shaped, like for example, there's not much people in Ellensburg, or even in both maps. Or actually, let's take a look at our congressional map real quick. Yeah, so if you take a look at district number 8, that is where I am from. Kent has a heavily portionate people. We're heavy populated down over here. And then that expands all the way from Ellensburg, and that's a 2-hour drive from Kent. And then from Ellensburg, it goes all the way north to the Wenatchee National Forest and all the way to Snoqualmie, Mount Banker area. So what these representatives do is that they try to draw these districts at their favor, knowing that they want to get the people who actually vote and the people who are more considered higher income, because they know that the vote will be persuaded into the direction that these representatives want. Then that's why if you take a look at 7 and 9, Seattle is also very populated with people. And lucky guess, that's where our tech companies are at, our big sectors, Boeing, Microsoft, Nintendo, all these sectors. So you know very heavily that people are going to be in these districts, and that's why it's very important to know, like, to be counted and all this other things, because things like this can not be in favor of BIPOC communities. And then if you want to skip to the next slides. So let's take action. So from all the information that we did say is that we can hold our representatives accountable. We, some situations do find ourselves like hopeless, but don't be hopeless, because there is hope, right? So as you know, all these are our right to protest, our right to free speech, our right to just be present in our communities and make a statement. So if you want to skip the slide, Gio. So calling and emailing your representatives is one form that you can do it. So here we have an example of how you can call a senator. So it's very easy. All you have to do is just Google Senator Maria Cantwell. She is one of our senators for Washington State. And let's say that we want to advocate for farm workers. So all you have to do is just create a quick script of what you want to do. I always recommend writing it down, because sometimes senators won't answer. It will just be one of their legislative assistants. However, there have been circumstances where the senators do answer your phone calls, so you always want to be ready. So what you want to start out with is, hi, my name is Tanya. I am your constituent from the zip code 98042, which is Kent. I am calling you today to urge you to protect farm workers and pass a bill that will protect all farm workers at all costs. Farm workers are not disposable and they are essential. And then you can insert any other thought you would like to add. So usually stories move representatives. And of course, we want to make sure that your voice and your human being is like being like considered, right? And let me tell you, doing all these actions, you don't need to be a US citizen or anything like that. All of you, like regardless of status, can do this type of work. So even if it's like anonymously, so like you can block your phone number or you block your phone number and call your office, because the probability of them calling back, you don't need them to call you back, right? Or you can make up a new email just for emails that being sent to the senators or your House of Representatives. But yeah, so that's my advice and one way of reaching out. for an example, emailed Alex Ibarra. He's one of the representatives for the District 40
13th
something, or
district.
yeah, there you go. Thank you. The Quincy area, Quincy Wenatchee area. So something that happened was that they go into session during January, February, March, and that's when the majority of the bills go. So a way that I was able to reach out to Representative Ibarra was to let him know, like, hey, like, this is what's happening, like, let's do this. And what's really cool is that they reply back to you. And then if you take a look at the time, like, these representatives will reply back to you. So as you can see that we were having conversations at like 10 at night because they were at session and the bill was almost dying. So right here we were advocating for undocumented loans. So it's a loan program that Washington State is now going to offer for undocumented students to apply for loans for higher education. So for an example, this bill was about to die in the session, and one of our folks from the immigrant network that I volunteer with, they emailed us and they called us saying, hey, we need to make sure that this bill doesn't die. So it was like a collective effort, and it passed. And someone in the chat just said, when does that bill go into effect? My understanding is that the bill will go into effect August of next year, if I'm not mistaken, or this year. I need to look back on it, but it will go either it's going to be in the month of August. Next year?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So we can go to the next slide. And of course, you can always advocate, talk to the politicians, the nasty politicians. I truly do mean that, because not all politicians are good politicians, and that's why we need the youth voice. So something that we can do too as an action is demand justice for Breonna Taylor. So everybody can write down that phone number. You can also just look up Louisville's Mayor Greg Fisher's email address and send him a message. Leave them calls, sign petitions. Although Breonna Taylor isn't a case for Washington, it's still a case for all of us, because this does affect everybody in the United States. So we got to make sure that we're holding people accountable the best that we can. And a lot of people say that petitions or calling people don't make a difference. And let me tell you, it does make a difference. So
It really does. Yeah. And I just want to include that on the aspect, like Tanya said, this isn't just a Louisville issue. It's an all of us issue, because, like, for me, honestly, I wouldn't be cool with a gang of 8 people that hide behind a badge, knock down my door, and start, like, if I were to have a gun, like, I'm assuming someone's breaking into my spot. So I'll pull out my gun to protect myself. And if I hear shooting, I will shoot back to protect myself, right? They didn't announce themselves going into her home. And then because this person protecting themselves thinking that they were being invaded, the police shot back without warning anyone that they were police, and they killed Breonna Taylor. So this unfortunately happened to Breonna Taylor, and we need to speak out right now, because if not, it can continue to happen, and it hopefully not, but it can happen in our community as well. So we need to take action. We need to speak out. We need to participate, because this shouldn't be politics, but it is. And politics affects us in every way of our life, once again.
yeah. And we need to be allies for our Black community as well, because I know the majority of us are identifying as the Latinx community, and we have to know that our roots go right back to the Black community, because without them, we would have no rights. They placed the work, and unfortunately their work is scraped on the floor. So it's very important that we acknowledge that they paved the way for all of us. And so did the Black transgender folks as well. So we do need to recognize, like, our Black community more often. And then another thing too I did want to mention is testifying. So during the end of like City Hall, just meetings or something that you don't like in the community, you can all testify, meaning that like what you think, or just putting your public comment. So for an example, something that I did was when all of So Kent is passing a budget that I wasn't like all for. So what I did was I showed up and I testified saying like, what the heck? Like, why are we welcoming big corporations when you know that Kent is one of the most diverse cities in the whole United States? I thought y'all were against gentrification, and here you are welcoming big companies. So just being able to like put your opinion in towards the end of the meeting is really big, impactful thing. But yeah, if you want to. Yep. And then also we do have phone and text banking. So that's when we call people, encouraging them to vote. We also, oh yeah, you can go to the next one as well. And then of course you can also advocate on social media. I put WhatsApp because I know a lot of Latinx families have WhatsApp groups. So even just dropping like the link to the registration to vote, saying like, hey, have you voted, is like the first step. If they leave you on scene, it's because they at least acknowledged it. But if you want to take it to the next step, just let them know why it's important to vote if they can vote. And then of course, letting your friends know by retweeting a tweet or anything like that. And then once again, at the very end, it's the power of the people. So if anybody ever tells you tells you that people don't make a difference, people do make a difference. And I am gonna say like, without protesting, and then once again, like I will say this, the riots make a difference. Like sometimes people get so fed up with peaceful protesting that sometimes our representatives need to see how people are just processing things. So the way that everything has been happening, and there has been a little change, but not full change, that it just means that it's working. But yes, there is a lot to the power of the people, and that's why I encourage you all to vote and be yourselves advocates.
And I do want to say, you know, I hate saying it and I hate hearing it, but it's the reality. Change is slow, but change will never occur if we stop fighting. So as much as we can be like, oh, I'm tired of yelling, I'm tired of reading on this candidate and whether I should vote or not, I'm tired of making these phone banks. Once you become tired and you give up, that means you've given up on the hope for change. Don't give up on the hope for change. It's a long and heavy battle, but it's one that we can win if united we stand. If united we are fighting against those forces that are wanting to mess up our livelihoods, destroy our cultures and our societies. Whether they like it or not, we are in this country as well, and we are part of this society and have a say in this society. And also, like, we pay taxes, yo. Like, shoot, we all pay taxes, like, for the most part, or at least we should be all paying taxes, right? And those benefits and those people that are in those positions of power work for us. We don't work for them. They work for us. So we need to continue fighting. We need to continue pushing. And we need to remind ourselves that we have this voice and this strength, and we have the numbers as well. They don't. We do. So power to the people, honestly. Are there any questions?
If you all have any questions, you can feel free to send them to Tanya, and she will read them out loud. And also a quick round of applause to Tanya and Gio. Thank you so much for presenting this. We appreciate you sharing and letting us learn all of these things.
Yeah, definitely. How do I stop sharing? There we go.
Yeah, and then thank you everyone. I know government's really boring, but it's something that we all need to like know as well, because at the end of the day, like for an example, if you get a traffic ticket, that's government for you. That's a government process thing. So yeah, if you all have any questions, feel free to just private chat me or one of the other co-hosts, and we would love to answer those questions for you. If not, yeah, I mean, that's it.
Can I leave off with one very quick quote that I really like to say often, is that we can't wait for others to create the change. We are those others that we are waiting for. It's us. So in other words, if we don't fight for this change, then who will? Remember, not everyone has to be at the forefront. Not everyone has to be that energized person, like, just turn in your, if you could vote, just turn in that ballot. And if you can't, you can talk to people who can. You can also participate in phone banking. Like, change happens easily only if we all participate.
Mhm. And then we actually do have a question, Gio. So the question is, how do you not get nervous or afraid with politicians?
So, I know it could be a little nerve-wracking, especially when you go into a room with this person who you're trying to convince them to listen to you, right? A quick reminder is that, once again, we all pay taxes. Like, if you don't, probably your parents do. So that dude is like getting paid through you, through your hard work. So that person better listen to what you gotta say. Don't get nervous, like, it's that's what I tell myself. It's like, try not to be nervous, because one, if getting nervous only takes up more time and doesn't allow me to get to the point. And then two, this person should be nervous of me. Like, I'm here to grill them. I'm here to tell them that what they're doing wrong. And if they're doing something right, I'll mention it. But I'll remind them what they're not doing right, because they're there because of us. They're winning a salary because of us. So just remind yourself that, like, you're there, and because they're there to work for you, and they should be the ones who are getting nervous. Don't fall into that tactics. Like, being nervous takes up too much time. Just
Yeah.
be confident with yourself and get to a point.
A candidate, when you call out a candidate, they usually get really nervous. So if you have the power of able to like show them the facts, show them your story, like when I mean your story, you're putting them on check. And usually 99.99% of the time, they're going to be speechless because they're going to be like, and then you're going to be like, I made you nervous. So just like, once again, like, don't be nervous of politicians. Honestly, they're really old people too. So like, what are they gonna do? We're the youth. We have a powerful voice. All right, so we do have another question here. So when you mentioned mailing a ballot from wherever you are, did you mean within Washington State or the entire country? So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I did mean within Washington State. However, if you do find yourself leaving the state, you can apply to turn in an absentee ballot. So it's basically voting by mail again, but you have to go through a different process so they can make sure that they send it to you and that it is you that they're sending it to, and that they send it to the right address wherever you may be outside of the state. But yes, I did mean that you can vote anywhere from across the state within Washington State.
Mhm. And then Washington State is one of the lucky states to have mail-in ballot systems. We don't have to wait in long lines like how we seen on Univision or Telemundo. All we gotta do is just walk outside of our house and put that ballot in the mailbox.
And you don't even got to put a postage on it. Like, it's already paid for. Like, it's easy. They give you 2 weeks to look through the ballot. You can mail it in, and you don't even got to put a postage on it. Like, how easy is that? In Georgia or in Alabama, you got to wait in line on the day of for like 6 hours. And if you get lucky, you can vote. If you didn't make the cut, sorry, bro, you didn't make the cut. Like, they make it really hard for you over there. In Washington State, they make it really easy for you.
Yeah. And then another question here is, what kind of things does Alianza do to relate to government work? So something that Alianza does is that we do focus a lot of work on our get out the vote efforts. So something that the Alianza youth did was create a get out the vote video. So they were able to state why they vote, why voting matters, and then just give a friendly reminder onto what important dates are. And that was for our primary. I believe you can see it on our Alianza page. That's where it is. But I'm actually getting a request from the